Good evening, everyone. My name is Seamus Sykes, and this is PANR's News of the World for the latest goings-on in our world. I'm joined by Noodle, our English correspondent and co-host, and Ash, our editor and weather expert. Tonight is the 11th of October 2021, and in a moment we'll be hearing from my co-host Noodle to hear a summary of what you can expect to hear tonight, but first, a weather report from Ash. Ash, if you would.
Thank you, Seamus. Today's weather is coming from Papeete, Tahiti, French Polynesia, where today, on Monday at 12 o'clock p.m., it is 29 degrees C, there is a 13% chance of precipitation, so fairly low, 67% humidity, so it's a bit sticky outside, and we have mild wind gusts at about 26 kilometers per hour. It's partly cloudy, and it is supposed to rain throughout the week, but Friday it's supposed to be sunny. That's all I've got for the weather, so let's move over to Noodle with the story lineup for tonight.
Thank you, Ash. With the weather in mind, I think we now have a good opportunity to provide a summary of the reports you can expect to hear tonight. Tonight, we'll be taking a look at Los Angeles and how the DA is handling certain drug convictions. Following this, information regarding the offshore accounts of the rich and powerful may have been compromised. Then we'll be discussing how New South Wales may be getting a new deputy premier as the former one resigns. And finally, Taiwan reaches out for help for the war with China. To begin, my colleague Seamus will be delving into the situation in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Noodle. And yes, I must say it's quite the situation in Los Angeles, where the actions of the district attorney may be a sign that the war on drugs may be waning. The LA District Attorney George Gaskin, in a statement made on Monday, the 27th of September 2021, announced that the District Attorney's Office will be moving to dismiss many pre-legalization marijuana charges. These charges, some of which date back to the 1980s, hang over the heads of many, preventing those who were convicted from getting jobs, housing, and many vital services. As cannabis laws have changed in California, many of these charges are being dismissed and removed from the records. Mr. Gaskin did the same in 2018 as District Attorney in San Francisco, where he wiped all charges dating back to 1975. Previously, 66,000 cases had been wiped in Los Angeles County, but Mr. Gaskin and the DA office have searched beyond the original scope, unearthing a new 58,000 cases, which now stand for dismissal and sealing. Many other cases may still be in place, however, as the state and localities do process differently, and the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office does not have access to the records from every district, but the investigation will continue. For now, this announcement is a huge step forward for those with prior drug convictions, allowing them to move forward with their lives without such a harsh punishment staining their record. This, along with the state's push for mental health awareness and drug abuse rehabilitation, will hopefully allow many Californians to regain their lives and freedoms. It is good to know that the humanity of those in office is not entirely lost. This change will do well for those affected by it, and I look forward to seeing Mr. Gaskin's promise come to fruition. In the meantime, however, we must be moving on. There's been quite the breach of information regarding the rich, powerful, and famous peoples of our world. In a most shocking leak, the dealings and offshore assets of world leaders, celebrities, and over 100 billionaires was made public in documents now named the Panama Papers. These documents have revealed a hidden world of financial spiderwebs, where the rich and famous have hidden billions of dollars in offshore accounts, shell companies, donations, and luxury items. Among those exposed are 35 world leaders, both current and past presidents, heads of state, and prime ministers. The papers have also given insight to the secret finances of more than 300 other officials such as judges and military generals in over 90 countries. Many of the documents included information about offshore accounts holding millions of dollars in tax havens such as Switzerland, Panama, Dubai, and the Cayman Islands. These accounts allow the holders to pay little to no tax on their held money, avoiding the tax rates of their home countries. Notably, however, the papers did show the complicit nature of much of the United States. Nevada and South Dakota, for example, have adopted financial secrecy laws that are on par with these tax havens. Amongst the offshore accounts and shell companies that were leaked, some of the information gave insight to the lifestyles led by many of the individuals included in the investigation. Records of $4.1 million apartments, $8.8 million office buildings, Picasso paintings, yachts, mansions, and more were bought with offshore money that was never taxed by the country the individual came from. While on a technical level, most of these activities are not necessarily illegal, some of the uncovered information has unearthed clues to actual money laundering and criminal activity, according to some experts. We will find out in the coming months and years just how deep this all goes. And though it is interesting to see how different of a world those of wealth live, we must be moving on. Noodle has taken a look at the current situation in Australia and will be reporting on the government of New South Wales. Over to you, Noodle.
I have to agree. It is terribly interesting to see how different of a world those of wealth find themselves in. I'm quite interested to see how this information affects them. In the meantime, however, we're going to take a look at New South Wales and their soon-to-be former Deputy Premier. 49-year-old John Barilaro has served in government for over 10 years of his life, nearly 5 of which have been spent filling the office of Deputy Premier. But according to Barilaro, the time has come to resign and retire from political office. This just days after former Premier Gladys Berejiklian and Transport Minister Andrew Constance declared their resignation, leaving 3 seats open in a government that already finds itself in the minority. Barilaro's decision to resign does not come from nothing. According to him, he had been contemplating the notion of resigning for quite some time. It was in fact his colleagues' resignations that ultimately convinced him it was the right time. This, much to the chagrin of opposition leader Chris Minns, who expressed contempt for Constance and Barilaro's resignation, suggesting that they should move to the backbench rather than abandon their duties of their office, saying, quote, "Frankly, to suggest you have a new job opportunity or would like to move into a new political arena is not a good enough reason to abandon your electorate, particularly during a pandemic." Barilaro has no intention of backing down, it seems, as he fully endorsed Treasurer Dominic Perrottet for Premier. Barilaro saying, quote, "I genuinely believe in his role as Treasurer has all the skills and all the ability, and if I endorsed as the leader of the Liberal Party, Premier of the state, he will do a wonderful job." Mr. Perrottet would later go on to announce that candidacy for the position. An interesting time to leave the government office, though. I admit I cannot hope to understand the stress officials must be under given the current state of our world. Unfortunately, we cannot devote more time to the story as we must move on to Taiwan and a potentially deadly conflict with China. Though, perhaps, potentially isn't the right word. Rather, it seems to be only a matter of time, as the small democratic country of Taiwan faces a show of force from the Chinese military. Having seen dramatically increased incursions of aircraft from the People's Liberation Army into the Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, the island's nation has little option but to mobilise their own aircraft and prepare to defend their skies. Foreign Minister Joseph Wu saying, quote, "The defence of Taiwan is in our own hands and we are absolutely committed to that," to ABC's Stan Grant in an interview. Mr. Wu went on to reach out to other like-minded nations to request help, generally focusing on Australia, who maintains a good relationship with Taiwan. Despite their relationship, Australia has not formally recognised Taiwan diplomatically. Even so, Mr. Wu has said, quote, "We would like to engage in security or intelligence exchanges with other like-minded partners, Australia included, so Taiwan is better prepared to deal with the war situation." It is likely, though not confirmed, that Australia will aid Taiwan in their plight. From a communique issued following last month's AUSMIN meetings between Australia and the United States, both countries have endeavoured to strengthen their ties with Taiwan. a quote, critical partner for both countries. And while I should like to continue, I'm afraid we're very nearly out of time. And so, to ease your mind from this terrifying situation, Seamus will be taking over for this week's trivia fact. Over to you, Seamus.
A terrifying situation indeed. Certainly something that should keep one awake through the night. Though perhaps some light-hearted trivia may ease your mind, if only slightly. We are all aware of cider, alcoholic drinks made of apples, perfect for holiday celebrations. Though apple cider is not your only option. Through a similar process of fermentation, pears may be used to create an alcohol known as perry. Just be sure you're of decent age before giving either cider or perry a try. And with that, I'm afraid we're all out of time. Noodle, would you be so kind as to sign us off for the evening?
That is all the stories that we have so far. So, we wish you a very happy night and a pleasant tomorrow. It's a good night from me. Good night. Good night from Seamus.
Take care.
And a good night from Ash.
Good night.
We'll see you next week, and remember, stay tuned for the latest goings on and stay safe.